The Jedi Council, Galactic peacekeepers, wise mentors, and winners of the How Did We Miss the Sith Lord Next Door award, 19 years running. These luminous beings spent millennia balancing serenity with a knack for face-palming decisions. But who truly mastered the Force? And who tripped over their own robes? Using criteria like lightsaber skills, I have a bad feeling about this intuition. Moral high ground ownership, and wait, that's your plan, blunders. We rank 20 Council legends from Padawan energy to Grand Master of Glow-Ups. In the stillness before dawn, the Geonosian sands lay silent, save for the distant hum of crowd anticipation. Above, rankers stirred behind iron bars, their guttural breaths an undercurrent to the polished cheers echoing through the arena's arches. It was here, beneath the twin suns and the spire-shadowed sky, that Master Coleman Trebor, the lumbering Wookiee-like Jedi, whose very presence seemed carved from the world's bedrock, stepped into destiny's glare. He moved with measured authority, his gaffy stick traded for a lightsaber whose green blade shimmered like an emerald dawn. Beside him stood the Republic's champions, swift, blade-lithe defenders honed by war's first murmur. Trebor, however, bore the weight of centuries in his broad shoulders. His eyes, beneath furrowed brows, held quiet confidence. He was the embodiment of the Council's resolve, steadfast, formidable, unyielding. Yet even pillars of stone can crack. Across the arena's length, a lone figure advanced. Jango Fett, the Mandalorian bounty hunter whose reputation spread like wildfire through both Republic halls and separatist strongholds. Armor gleamed beneath sun-scorched skies. His jetpack hissed with latent menace. In that moment, the crowd hushed, sensing the collision of two worlds. Tradition against innovation, ancient order against mercenary pragmatism. Trebor struck first, his blade arcing in a sweeping blow that stirred the sands like a tidal wave. Fett answered with a spin of wrist and wrist flick of blaster, the twin breast-mounted cannons roaring in sudden thunder. The first bolts struck Trebor's robes, searing arcs of white-hot death. Yet he endured, his great frame twisting beneath the barrage, footfalls forging craters in the dust. The Mandalorian circled, calculating. He stepped atop a fractured column and leapt, firing downward in a rain of ricochets. Trebor raised his blade in a storm of green light, yet the momentum carried Fett's shots past his guard, graze upon graze until the Master's robes lay torn, his blade sputtering with disrupted connection. In that crucible, Trebor's eyes narrowed, not in rage, but in realization. The Council's complacency, its faith in endless calm, had birthed a crisis. Brilliant warriors and ancient masters alike could be felled by a single unexpected bolt. Yet even as his knees buckled, he rose again, summoning the last of his strength in one final quaking charge. Fett stepped back, shrugging aside blaster noise as mere wind in his armor. Trebor's saber-swept arc met only air, and in the agony of displacement, the Master's foot caught in a fractured seam. His great form pitched forward, blade clattering across sun-baked stone. In one slow heartbeat, the arena's roar shifted from eager clamor to stunned silence. Trebor lay still beneath the dual suns, his breathing ragged as dust settled like regret. Fett lowered his weapons as though granting respect to a fallen foe, even a master deemed obsolete by emerging wars. The crowd exhaled, a collective pulse of sorrow and awe. In that quiet, the symbol was clear. No guardian, no matter how steadfast, could stand alone against the shifting tide of conflict. Back in the Jedi Council's hallowed chambers, the report arrived like a thunderclap. Coleman Trebor, veteran, pillar, quietly devout, had fallen in under a minute. His defeat seared into every mind, a warning that complacency bred vulnerability, and that ancient wisdom must adapt to new threats or be silenced forever. Yet in that same whisper of loss, a spark ignited. Across the Republic, Padawans examined their forms with fresh eyes. Masters scrutinized old strategies and sought new alliances. In hidden enclaves, the seed of humility took root. Trebor's sacrifice became a lesson etched in living memory. That strength alone was not enough, that wisdom required foresight, and that even the mightiest could crumble without vigilance. On Iktoch's distant moons, where storm seers awaited their visions, the legend of Trebor's fall pulsed through bloodstone temples, each crack in crystal runes echoing warning. Across the outer rim's smuggler ports, bounty hunters raised a glass to the one who had reminded them that no bounty, no matter how grand, outsized a master's dignity. And on Coruscant, in council chambers once hallowed by Trebor's council, his empty seat became a monument. The green glow of his unused lightsaber remained in its display case, a beacon of caution against arrogance. Young acolytes paused before it, tracing its worn hilt and sensing the weight of his last stand. They vowed, beneath that emerald light, to carry forward not just his blade form, but his unwavering spirit. For Coleman Trebor was more than a master felled by a hail of blaster fire. He was an echo of the Council's greatest peril and its greatest promise. His swift defeat by Jango Fett was not merely a failure, but a call to shed complacency, to embrace change, and to remember that true guardianship demands both blade and foresight. As dusk returned to the spire-shadowed arenas of Geonosis, a lone wind swept through the Colosseum, stirring the sands and carrying the faintest whisper of a mantra once intoned by a master who fell too soon. Adapt, or be forgotten. In the hollow hush before dawn, the citadel of Munilinst lay cloaked in mist, its spires barely discernible against the grey horizon. Within its marble halls, Master Eeth Koth paced with restless purpose, each footfall echoing doubts he could no longer silence. His Zabrak horns, once proud beacons of his heritage, itched with untold portents. He had served the Council through wars and whispers of darkness. But a tremor in the Force unsettled him, and with it, his faith began to fray. On the crystalline fields of Christophsis, when Generals Etain Turmu Khan and Obi-Wan Kenobi faltered under General Grievous's assault, Koth arrived too late. His lightsaber burned with righteous fury, but against the kaleidoscope of spinning droids, his efforts proved as fleeting as a candle's glow in the tempest. He felled battle droids by the score, yet each fallen machine only sharpened his dread. The Separatists' shadows stretched ever wider. Then came the ambush. Grievous, that living cyclone of mechanical wrath, descended through shattered windows like a herald of ruin. Koth met him in the forum's shattered arches, blade raised, blade fallen. The duel was brutal, spun with 4 saber arms and 1 heart of steel. Sparks flew as metal met blade, the clangor ringing through marble corridors. Yet when Grievous's serrated wrists found flesh, his horns became targets. In a final, agonizing moment, the general's gauntlet cuff snapped one horn from its root, an act of savage precision that sent Koth's body crumpling to the cold floor. Surrounded by the clang of retreating droids, Eeth Koth lay amid broken stone and bone-white marble. He tasted ash and disbelief, His horn lay beside him, a severed monument to his pride. As the Separatists' engines faded into the sky, Koth's breath came ragged and slow, each inhalation laced with a growing ache, not of physical wound, but of shattered belief. Dragged before General Grievous like spoils of war, Koth's captors bound him in chains that sparkled with cruel artistry. They paraded him through the mob's jeers, a fallen symbol of Jedi invincibility. In that humiliating procession, the Zabrak master saw not only his broken horns, but the fissures in the Order itself. The Council's refusal to heed warning signs, Anakin's growing recklessness, Obi-Wan's doubts, Padawan queries left unanswered, had brought him to this nadir. Shut in a damp cell carved from volcanic rock, Koth's mind churned with regret. He recalled his earliest days on Coruscant, a hopeful acolyte drawn to the promise of balance. He remembered the Council's solemn gaze when he first knelt before them, feeling immortal and unbreakable. Yet here, in the dim glow of a single torch, he recognized the frailty of certainty. When rescue came, Obi-Wan's clever stratagem and Anakin's unorthodox charge, they found him hollow-eyed, shackles still cold around his wrists. Koth's relief was muted by a deeper sorrow. The saviors who freed him rose from the very divisions he had failed to prevent. Anakin's fervent loyalty clashed with Obi-Wan's cautious steadiness. Their rift mirrored his own. As they led him back through corridors steeped in conflict, each step echoed the fatal divide widening within the Council. Returning to Coruscant, Koth faced the Council's scrutiny like a condemned trial. They lauded his survival, but ignored his warnings. The Senate's machinations, the Jedi's military drift, the shadows lengthening in Anakin's eyes. He spoke of premonitions, of steel sabers that clashed in nightmares, of schemes writ in bloodstone and political code. Yet his counselors, clad in robes of ivory and azure, nodded politely, while their own glimmers of foresight dimmed beneath protocol's weight. Disillusionment took root in Koth's heart. He questioned the tenets that once guided him. Was peace maintained by prophecy or by humility? Did justice demand action or restraint? When Mace Windu dismissed his urgings to investigate a missing Padawan, and Yoda declined to revisit forgotten Sith lore, Koth saw not wisdom, but fear. And so, quietly, he stepped away, resigning his seat, surrendering his lightsaber, choosing exile over complicity. In the twilight of his departure, he visited the broken remains of his temple on Myrka, where Wookiee survivors brushed away ash to reveal carved glyphs he had once inscribed. Their thankful murmurs could not heal the rupture in his soul. He left them, blessings and a parting gift, his severed horn, polished and lit with a single rune, a reminder that foresight without action breeds ruins. Far from both Senate and Temple, Koth wandered desert wastes and jungle ruins, searching for fragments of truth lost in the Council's grand design. He studied ancient texts on Illum's frozen plains and debated with nomads beneath Nam Chorios's red moons. Some nights he retired to moon-swept sanctuaries, meditating on a single question: can one who predicts ruin avert it, or only witness its coming? Yet even in isolation, Koth's legacy endured. Whispers of the fallen Zabrak reached rebel cells on Lothal, where rogue archivists scoured Imperial data vaults for his discarded warnings. His blood-etched prophecies, once silenced by hubris, found new life in encrypted comm logs and secret broadcasts. Pilots flying Crimson and Grey fighters recited fragments of his counsel over comm static, guiding strikes against unsuspecting outposts. In his final reported sighting, Koth stood atop a plateau on Utapau, overlooking sinkholes where vat-grown armies churned beneath the planetscape. He murmured a prophecy to the wind, one last dirge etched into memory. When guardians cling to dogma, doom becomes inevitable. Then, as if carried away by the Force, he vanished beneath the swirling dust, leaving only the echo of his starburst eyes blazing with unfulfilled foresight. And so, Eeth Koth's tale endures not as a chronicle of defeat, but as a somber testament. That mistrust sown among allies bears the bitter harvest of division, and that the brightest visions can wither when the heart grows hardened by doubt. A hush of calculated calm settled over the war room's curved walls, illuminated by the pale glow of numerous hollow projectors. Master Oppo Rancisis reclined on a molded dais, his sinuous Thespiasian form coiled like a living chart of strategy. Behind him, star systems danced in spectral blue, each flare and shadow another decision awaiting judgment. Though the Clone Wars raged on worlds beyond this chamber, here, among the Council's most cherished tactician, peace seemed perpetually within reach. Oppo's data-scrying eyes traced the trajectories of separatist fleets massing beyond Christophsis's asteroids. He inhaled slowly, drawing in the ozone-tinged breath of recycled air, and exhaled in a measured hiss. In this moment, the Jedi Council's strength lay not in lightsaber flashes or force storms, but in the quiet cunning of one whose telepathic reach spanned a dozen minds at once. A dozen voices whispered tactical variances into his consciousness. Flank here, feint there, press the advantage when shields flicker. Yet even as he integrated each thread, he felt the steady tug of war's rhythm pulling him deeper into conflict's embrace. From early initiation rites on Thespius, Oppo had mastered group thought meditation, an art allowing him to channel collective intent through his slender neck tendrils. He often stood at dawn beneath luminescent fungus groves, merging with his kin in silent communion, forging a singular clarity. The Council, recognizing this gift, elevated him not as warrior, but as strategist. During the opening salvos of the Clone Wars, his plans choked the Separatist advance on Boz Pitti and isolated General Grievous from vital supply lines, turning tides where blades and blaster bolts fell short. Yet in strategy's weave lurked a paradox. Every victory birthed new fronts. Every blockade sowed desperation. As battles multiplied, Oppo's counsel grew indispensable, and the Council's reliance on his psionic web became a crutch. Other masters deferred their own force-guided insights to his telepathic guidance, the lull of conformity weaving through each tactical briefing. Obi-Wan Kenobi's sharp instincts on Utapau, Anakin Skywalker's brash tenacity on Kashyyyk. Each was funneled through Oppo's prism of strategy before action could proceed. In one pivotal clash over the skies of Cato Nemoidia, the young General Skywalker proposed a daring starfighter sweep to cripple the Trade Federation's Central Command ship. The swirl of lightsaber focus and raw force anticipation burned bright in Obi-Wan's eyes as he supported Anakin's plan. Yet when the Council convened, Oppo's measured mind cautioned delay, laying out probabilities of cruiser reinforcements arriving first, civilian casualties multiplying, retreat corridors collapsing. His telepathic cantillation washed over his peers until hesitation eclipsed decisive breath. The resulting standoff allowed the Separatists to regroup, turning a potential triumph into a prolonged siege. Weeks later, the hollow map burned with red markers as Cato's loop world became hollow echo of conflict. Senate backchannels whispered of Jedi dithering when boldness was needed most. And through it all, Oppo remained calm, the subtle sway of his mind threads guiding decisions, even as he sensed frustration growing in the Order's ranks. His greatest misstep came when he unsettled even himself. A vision, transmitted through the Council's collective consciousness, revealed Chancellor Palpatine's hidden hand weaving through Senate votes, flattering Jedi ambitions, then deepening their dependence on war's machinery. Yet by the time Oppo voiced these suspicions, the gears of conflict had seized. Some masters dismissed him as alarmist. Others worried such accusations would fracture unity. The Council, chastened but unconvinced, pressed on, underlining the very blind spot Oppo had long feared. In the weeks that followed, Thespius's telepathic currents grew still around him. What began as the subtle bleed of worry among his people swelled into outright dread. His Ordo Clack, senior Thespiasian adepts, sighed into their communal trance, mourning the Jedi Order's moral erosion. Yet even as the current stilled, Oppo knew he could not withdraw. To surrender his place would leave the Council adrift entirely. So he persevered, coiling his own concerns into the next set of projections, guiding the Republic's armies with the same dispassionate precision that had first earned him acclaim. Finally, in the aftermath of the Battle of Coruscant, when the Jedi towered over the smoldering wreckage of the Supreme Chancellor's ship, Oppo understood how war's embrace could devour both warrior and council. He resolved then to share his burden. In a rare council address before Mace Windu and Yoda, he spoke plainly of the Order's over-reliance on strategic calculation, of the need to rebalance wisdom with compassion and urgency with foresight. He invited every master to contribute directly, to step from behind his telepathic veil and trust their own convictions. In that moment, the fabric of the Council shifted. Discussions grew more spirited, debates longer and less filtered by a single mind's patterns. The risk of misstep increased, yes, but so too did the promise of renewal. Even as the final campaigns of the Clone Wars loomed, the Jedi Order caught glimpses of its earlier ideal, guardians of peace, not mere architects of conflict. As dusk fell over the Jedi Temple's terraces, Oppo retreated to the meditation hollow. There, surrounded by the soft whisper of projected star maps, he slipped into the group mind communion of his home world. His thought threads braided with those of distant kin who had never drawn a lightsaber, but whose ancient songs held wisdom beyond battle. In their notes, he rediscovered a purpose beyond strategy, to keep the balance not by war's end, but by peace's return. And though his slender form remained coiled amidst flickering hollow projections, his heart, once ensnared by the ebb and flow of war, found stillness in the living current of many minds. Tension thrummed beneath the Coruscant night as Master Adi Gallia stepped onto the platform of the palace garden. Lanterns of pale crystal cast rippling patterns across her crimson tendrils, each one a testament to Tholoth's storms and her own mastery over their secrets. Far below, the city's sprawl glowed like a galaxy of silent stars. Yet even in this place of serene beauty, the undercurrents of darkness had begun to stir. Gallia moved with the poised grace of a blade dancer, her keen eyes scanning the horizon for threats unseen. She remembered her earliest days on Geonosis, how wind-borne sands had danced around her form as she deflected sniper fire with a flick of silvered steel. She had faced countless perils, from droid armies to political conspiracies, and each time emerged with her faith fortified. Yet nothing in her storied past had prepared her for the storm that approached now. In the concealed corridors of a separatist stronghold, a figure waited. Savage Opress, newly reforged in the dark side's crucible and hungering for violence. His black eyes burned with primal hunger, and a double-bladed lightsaber crackled like fractured thunder against his ebony robes. He had heard rumors of the Jedi Council's neglect, of masters who clung to ancient certainties while new horrors grew unchallenged. And so he came, not as conqueror, but as reckoning incarnate. When Gallia's comlink crackled with the alarm, she spun to face her attackers, twin sabers igniting in swift, fiery arcs. Her tendrils flared, sensing every fluctuation in the Force, each whisper of fear, each breath of aggression. Yet when Savage descended, his blade met hers not in a test of skill, but in a whirlwind of unbridled rage. His strikes were raw, untethered by discipline, each blow driving her backward across the marble floor. Gallia countered with precision, her silvered saber slicing a path through the darkness. But Opress's strength was fueled by vengeance, and with each parry, her confidence flickered. She sought to reach him, to calm the storm before it raged out of control, but her pleas dissolved in the clash of blades. In that clash lay the fatal fault. She fought not a soldier, but a force of nature, an embodiment of everything the Council had failed to see. A final, brutal strike shattered her guard. Her crimson tendrils, aflame with the light of her resolve, quivered as Savage's blade pierced her chest. In that single moment, the world stilled. Her blade fell from trembling fingers, her form collapsing amid shattered fountains and fallen petals. Lantern light danced across the wound, turning blood to rubies in the cold air. As she lay beneath the fractured arch, Gallia's mind raced, not with fear, but with clarity. She saw the Council's complacency, masters who debated protocol while shadows gathered at their gates. A young knight whose loyalty they trusted without question. A galaxy unprepared for the dark side's swift strike. With her last breath, she understood that wisdom must evolve or be rendered obsolete. Savage's laughter echoed as he raised his blade, but destiny's tide did not flow his way. From the shadows emerged a cadre of Jedi. Stealth forces dispatched too late, their arrival a lament rather than salvation. Their leader knelt by Gallia's side, pressing a hand over her wound, grounding her fading spirit in the embrace of the Force. Yet there was no reversal of fate, only the gentlest fading of her light. Back in the Council chambers, news of Master Gallia's fall spread like a shockwave. The holographic emblems of the Republic flickered on 10,000 worlds, each a testament to the fragile balance between order and chaos. In the hush that followed, the Council convened not as masters of destiny, but as grieving survivors. They saw in Gallia's demise the price of their isolation, the cost of turning from threats too foreign, too fierce, to heed. In the weeks that followed, petals from the palace garden were pressed into holocron ceremonies, a living memory of her sacrifice. Younglings learned her name in whispered lessons, taught not only of her skill, but of her final lesson, that vigilance is a blade that must never dull, and that prophecy unanswered becomes tragedy foretold. Yet in the ancient archives on Ossus, scholars unearthed a final message carved into a hidden panel, a vision Gallia recorded moments before her last breath. In it, she spoke of storms yet to come, and of minds blinded by certainty. She urged the Order to look beyond tradition, to adapt with the Force's shifting currents, and to honor not just the past, but the promise of tomorrow. And so, as twilight fell across the Jedi Temple's spired roofs, the memory of Adi Gallia lived on, not merely as a fallen master, but as a beacon of transformation. Her crimson tendrils no longer ignited with life, yet in every Jedi's heart they burned anew, a warning that emerging threats must be seen, not feared, that disconnect sows the seeds of downfall, and that true guardianship demands the courage to embrace change. In the Jedi Temple's meditation garden, shadows stretched long and lean across polished marble, as if reaching for the forgotten. There, a lone figure drifted between lantern-lit columns, Master Yarael Poof, whose gaunt Quirmian frame seemed woven from moonlight and mist. His neck, impossibly elongated, bore the weight of 2 silent brains. His arms, 4 in number, folded beneath robes that whispered of distant storms on Quirmia. Though he once presided among the galaxy's greatest, Poof now moved like an echo of the Council's past glory, his presence a testament to what had been, and what would soon be lost. Poof's mind, famed for its mastery of battle meditation and intricate illusions, had guided countless campaigns to victory long before the Clone Wars darkened the stars. He had stood in the High Council chamber in 32 BBY, advising on the fate of a young Anakin Skywalker and cautioning against reckless apprenticeship. Yet in the final years of the Republic, when holocrons glowed with warning and Sith whispers threaded through the Force, Poof's counsel grew quiet, his once sharp insights drowned beneath the din of bureaucracy and civil war. Long before his disappearance, Poof had confronted the shadows that crept through galactic politics. During the grand renewal of Quen, he brokered peace with theatrical flair, urging senators to heed the arts as much as arms. When the great hyperspace disaster shattered warp lanes, he helped frame the Guardian protocols, ensuring the Order remained vigilant against unseen threats. His mastery of illusions even fooled a diplomatic envoy on Coruscant, turning security droids into dancing phantoms, an artful lesson in perception's power. Yet fame can breed isolation. As the Republic's needs shifted from council to combat, Poof found himself stranded between worlds. His subtle arts, once prized for mitigating conflict, were overshadowed by the clang of lightsabers and the roar of starship turbo lasers. Younger masters, emboldened by raw ecclesiastical might, chafed at his patience. Jedi Knights pressed for direct action, Padawans called for flashy feats of power. Alone in his garden enclave, Poof sensed the Order's heart falter, its vision narrowing to the immediacy of battle rather than the horizon of hope. It was on a routine peace mission to Naboo that Poof's fate was sealed. Reports spoke of a Coati warlord wielding stolen Sith relics, a threat to delicate negotiations. Poof volunteered to lead the delegation, envisioning a diplomatic resolution shaped by cunning rather than conflict. He arrived in Theed beneath twin moons, his presence heralded by faint ripples in the Force, whispers that unsettled palace guards and warlords alike. The first meetings progressed smoothly. Poof's voice, calm and resonant, wove illusions of prosperity and unity. Holographic projections shimmered with hope. But in the second chamber, a Sith-sired trap lay hidden. As the warlord's mercenaries sprang their ambush, Poof's 4 hands ignited his lightsaber, but the blade's hum was too late. A concealed Sith dagger, forged in obsidian malice, struck from behind, its edge cutting deep into the Quirmian's back. Poof's lightsaber clattered to the floor as he collapsed among fractured columns and shattered starlight. His final moments were not marked by rage, but by reflection. Surrounded by gasping diplomats and panicked guards, Poof extended a trembling hand, conjuring a fading illusion of happier days on Quirmia's storm-lashed coasts. In that gentle mirage, he saw his home's bioluminescent reefs and the laughter of his kin, a world of balance untainted by war. Then his eyes closed, and the illusion faded into the chamber's cold light. Word of his death spread through the Jedi Temple like a silent tide. The Council, already stretched thin, held no grand funeral in the Hall of Heroes. No holographic eulogies glowed in the corridors. Poof's seat on the High Council stood empty, a pale reminder of the Order's dwindling relevance. Younglings in Coruscant's academies paused in their drills, sensing the loss of a mentor they had never truly known. Yet, in the Order's hidden archives, Poof's teachings endured. Holocron recordings of his battle meditations, once shelved behind layers of protocol, were retrieved by a determined archivist named Joni Rotic. Pilgrims to Ossus carried fragments of his illusions, replaying them beneath petrified bone spires to remind themselves that strategy must always evolve. In the Outer Rim's quiet corners, mercenaries recounted the tale of a Quirmian whose mind could shape reality and whose absence announced the Council's twilight. Rebels on Dantooine raised a silent toast to his memory, recalling that true guardians protect not only with blade and blaster, but through wisdom that outlives the wars we fight. And so, Master Yarael Poof's elongated shadow, once stretching across galaxy-spanning crises, faded into legend. His passing marked not merely the loss of a Jedi Master, but the twilight of an order that had forgotten its roots in vision and balance. In that shadow's stillness lay a final lesson, that to be remembered is to shape the future, and that no legacy endures when it is left unwitnessed. In the fragile glow of dawn, the air in Rael's hold clung heavy with dread. Faded banners, slapped together from rebel rags, snapped half-heartedly against iron walls. In the deepest cells, where light and hope barely pierced, Master even Piell lay bound to a rusted slab. His lannic face, elongated cheekbones streaked with scars, twisted in defiance as blaster-tipped interrogators prowled like jackals waiting for a kill. Captured during a covert mission to relay the Nexus route's coordinates, Piell had insisted on secrecy, the path through the Outer Rim's magnetic currents that led straight to the Republic's heart. Should the Separatists learn of it, the entire supply line would be cut. Yet, betrayal came not from within the Order, but from the cold logic of war. His own clone guards, misled by hollow fabrications, handed him over for a promise of victory. And so the Council's most unassuming tactician found himself alone amid steel gates. Despite the binding cuffs clenching his wrists, Piell's spirit burned brighter than any flame. His voice, a low, resonant echo, drifted down the corridors as he recited the Jedi Code, a whispered litany of balance and peace that grated against his surroundings. Each syllable was a challenge to his captors, a reminder that compassion outlived cruelty. But the Separatist commanders preferred spectacle to subtlety. In a flooded chamber, he was tormented by searing shocks, each pulse a reminder that knowledge, like blood, could be forced from any vessel. Days passed in a haze of pain and memory. Piell recalled teaching younglings how to navigate the Force's currents, showing them that true strength lay not in aggression, but in harmony. He saw again the smile of a Padawan, whose first saber form he had guided, the glint of promise in her eyes. In his mind's eye, the Nexus route unfurled like a ribbon of starlight, a network of warps and whispers that could save 1,000,000 lives. He would not betray that map. Late one night, under the pale leak of starlight through grated windows, Piell was dragged before a makeshift tribunal. Battle droids scrolled through holologs, accusing him of treason. But when they demanded the route's secrets, his mouth remained sealed. Each word withheld was a dagger to his captor's ambitions, a testament that some truths die only when their guardians yield. Back in the Jedi Temple, News of Piell's disappearance rippled across the council chambers like a chill wind. Masters who had once debated hyperspace protocols in ornate archives now huddled in somber councils, haunted by the thought that one of their own had vanished into the Separatists' machine. The code, once a beacon, now seemed a brittle relic in the face of industrialized conflict. Meanwhile, in the furnace of his cell, Piell endured more than physical torment. He faced visions of corruption, Jedi generals eager for battlefield glory, senators drunk on power, and the ever-present shadow of Grievous's mechanized blade. Yet even as hallucinations clawed at his mind, a deeper conviction held him fast. The Nexus route was more than a set of coordinates. It was a lifeline woven by hope, and he would protect it with his dying breath. On the seventh dawn, his captors delivered him to the gallows, a rigged pylorine scaffold that loomed over a cratered expanse. As Piell stood, chains clinking, the assembled troops fell silent. He looked once more toward the horizon, where blue suns rose over endless dunes, and lifted his head in quiet challenge. Then, with deliberate calm, he spoke the code's final tenet: compassion, which I would rather earn than deserve. A single pulse of crate resonance echoed as the Order's own executed him, sealing his lips and scattering his ashes to the wind. The blaster bolt sparked against his flesh, and his body crumpled like a withered blossom. In the hush that followed, the Nexus route's holographic keys, stolen from his private vault, flickered to life in a rebel safe house on Ryloth. Unauthorized transmissions leaking into dank comm channels. Pilots decrypted his final cipher, learning the paths that Piell had guarded until the end. Supplies flowed once more to beleaguered worlds, and entire garrisons broke siege thanks to whispers only Piell had known. Back on Coruscant, the Jedi Council convened not for celebration, but for confession. They spoke of unwatched warnings, of lives traded for protocol, and of a master whose martyrdom could not redeem their wartime ethics. In a rare decree, they inscribed Piell's name alongside the Order's holocrons, not as a footnote, but as a warning. That knowledge unshared is betrayal, and that silence under pressure can carve deeper wounds than any lightsaber. In secret sanctuaries, Padawans recited Piell's final words in hushed tones, each syllable a vow to shape destiny rather than defer to it. On distant starports, smugglers flew safe passages marked by flickering beacons, homages to the route mapped by the Lannic master. And on worlds caught between tyranny and freedom, his scarred face, etched in memory, remained a symbol that defiance can bloom even in the darkest cells. Speeder bike engines thunder across the dusky atmosphere of Kashyyyk's orbit, their roar swallowed by distant echoes of laser fire. High above the tangled canopy, Jedi Master Stass Allie commanded her squadron with disciplined calm, her green blade a beacon of resolve against the separatist onslaught. Yet in that moment of courage, the fate of a promise unfulfilled flickered as her crystal hum waned and her chassis collapsed into ignition. Stass Allie's story begins on the marble dais of the Jedi Temple, where her graceful poise and steady insight earned whispers of future leadership. Among the Council's youngest members, she embodied dedication tempered by compassion, her heart attuned to the living force, and her mind sharpened by rigorous study of ancient holocrons. When the Clone Wars erupted, she left the Sanctum's serene halls to defend the Republic's citizens, believing that guardians must sometimes bear arms to uphold peace. Assigned to the Wookiee homeworld, Allie found herself amid forests where sunlight filtered through emerald leaves and lurking dread. As Senate envoys debated treaties, she led clone battalions through suspended bridges and living routes, guiding them away from ambushes and coaxing surrender from ragged enclaves of separatist droids. Her voice, soft as Lothal's spring breeze, carried authority and compassion, urging clones to shield civilians and droids to lay down arms rather than face eradication. On the eve of Order 66, tragedy found its mark. Imperial decree fractured the clones' loyalty circuits, yet Allie remained unaware of the silent betrayal encoded in their genes. From the command tower, she signaled her squadron to defend a group of hiding families, her blade's glow reflecting in binoculars as she scanned the horizon. Then, without warning, blaster bolts stripped the night sky. The clones she trusted turned on her, as though puppets severed from strings. A singular bolt pierced her thigh, sending her to one knee, the speeder's engines faltering overhead. Her blade kicked from parry to circular guard, deflecting barrages that tore trenches into living rock. She faltered again, a pulse of pain radiating through nerves and veins, yet she held fast. In her last act of defiance, she spun toward a charging droid, blocking its vibroblade with a desperate strike that echoed like a dying bell. When the final echo subsided, Stass Allie lay amid shattered speeders and smoking craters, her blade extinguished and her breath a whisper in the silent aftermath. Clone troopers marched past, weapons lowered not by mercy, but by coded resolve. Her body was carried away with the fallen, a testament to the Council's role as generals rather than guardians, a lesson written in sorrow. Her loss became emblematic of the Jedi's transformation. No longer mere sentinels of peace, they became commanders in a war they scarcely understood, their doctrines bent by conflict until they cracked beneath the weight of desperation. Stass Allie's death in mid-battle crystallized this failure, that even the most promising guardians could be used as instruments of warfare, their purpose obscured by tactics and treated as expendable. Yet, in the quiet that followed, her legacy took root. Wookiee clans, once mistrustful of off-worlders, erected memorial totems where her speeder crashed, inscribing her name in carved pillars and draping them with woven vines. Each dawn, they lit lanterns along the bridges where she had led troops, honoring her memory in silent song. In Jedi archives, her holocron remained locked, its lessons on compassion and the peril of militarization encoded as warnings for future generations. Across the galaxy, whispers of Stass Allie's courage endured. In hidden refuges, aspiring Padawans spoke her name as one who held serenity amidst ruin, whose blade shone brightest when hope flickered dimmest. Though she never sat upon the Council after Order 66, her spirit lingered among those who remembered that true guardianship demands more than tactics, that it requires an unwavering bond to life itself. Now we leave Kashyyyk's forested spires and the memory of Stass Allie's final stand behind. Ahead, a master of the Force emerges from the mist, one whose fall and redemption echo both warning and hope. A fine mist curls through Harun Kal's ruined temples, cloaking marble pillars in ghostly shrouds as twilight surrenders to night. In that haunted silence, Jedi Master Depa Bilaba's eyes flare an unsettling yellow, a flicker of shadow that betrays her calm facade. Once a beacon of serenity and discipline, she now teeters on the edge of darkness, her spirit unraveling in the weight of grief and isolation. Depa's journey began under the vaulted ceilings of Coruscant's High Council chamber, where her wisdom and empathy earned her a seat among the Order's most respected guardians. She taught younglings to find balance in the Force's flow, and counseled Jedi Knights with gentle conviction. In battle, her twin blades danced with measured precision, a testament to her mastery of Ataru. But beneath her composed exterior lay scars unseen, memories of comrades lost, and a nagging doubt that peace could ever be preserved in a galaxy at war. When the Clone Wars spilled across worlds, Billaba led battalions into the jungles of Harun Kal, seeking to quell separatist holdouts amid ancient relics. The jungle's humidity clung to armor and flesh alike, its vines twisting like living chains. Each step forward brought scenes of devastation, shattered hollow archives, desecrated statues of former Jedi, and starving refugees whose eyes pleaded for salvation. With every life spared, Depa felt a piece of her conviction hollow. A slow erosion she could neither halt nor confess. In the heart of the jungle, rumors told of a dark shrine where Sith spirits lingered. Billaba and her squadron discovered the ruin's blackened altar beneath a broken dome, its starlight-steeped mosaics cracked by centuries of neglect. There the air grew cold, and voices, soft as dying breezes, whispered of power unbound. Drawn by her desire to protect, she reached out to touch the altar's obsidian surface, and the darkness reached back. From that moment, her clarity faltered. Nights merged into days as she prowled shadowed crags, seeking signs of betrayal in every ally's glance. Her lightsabers remained at her belt, yet in her mind, they ignited against unseen foes. Orders from the Council echoed in distant memory, drowned by a cacophony of doubt. When her apprentice, Bultar Swan, pleaded for guidance, Depa's replies were hollow echoes, her warmth replaced by a chill that stung the soul. It was Kanan Jarrus, a hidden survivor of Order 66, who found her on the shrine's steps, drawn by the Force's anguished cry. Cloaked in moonlight, he extended his hand, not as master to student, but as one wounded soul to another. He spoke of pain and forgiveness, of the fragile line between service and sacrifice. His presence braided threads of sunlight through the mist, illuminating corners of her fractured spirit. In that moment of clarity, Depa's yellow eyes flickered with fear and longing. She raised a trembling hand to her aching heart, feeling the darkness recoil at Kanan's gentle strength. Together, they walked from the temple's ruins, her lightsabers reigniting with pure green glow as she reclaimed her place in the light. Her redemption was not a single act, but a quiet vow whispered beneath starlit trees, to bear her wounds openly, to serve without wielding terror, and to teach others the cost of imbalance. Billaba returned to the Council transformed. No longer the unflappable arbiter of serenity, she carried in her gaze the hard-earned wisdom of someone who had touched the abyss. She spoke candidly of fear and faltering faith, her voice steady as she urged reforms to safeguard Jedi minds against isolation. Though she never re-entered the great sanctuary's marble halls, her teachings echoed through the Order like ripples on a still pond, reminding every Padawan and master that vulnerability can be the greatest path to strength. As dawn broke over Harun Kal's emerald canopy, Kanan stood beside her, their silhouettes framed by new light. The jungle's mist retreated before the rising sun, leaving dew-bright leaves in its wake. In that gentle glow, Depa Bilaba's legacy endured, not as a tale of unblemished victory, but as a testament to the resilience of a wounded heart. Transition. From the redemption found in shadowed jungles, we now ascend to the heights of wisdom and folly, entering the trials of Ki-Adi-Mundi's ancient doctrine and the weight of a dual-brained destiny. A silver blade of emerald light ignites against Coruscant's twilight, as Jedi Master Argan Kollar steps into the Supreme Chancellor's private chambers, his dual crystal saber framing a Zabrak's confident silhouette. He moves with the assured grace of a duelist who has felled countless foes, yet even his masterful swing cannot stem the tide of betrayal poised to crash upon the Jedi Order. Aegon's path began on the bustling spires of the Republic capital, where his sensitivity to the Force was discovered and nurtured within the temple's hallowed halls. Tall and broad-shouldered, the Iridonian Zabrak carried the weight of expectation with quiet determination, training beneath masters who recognized his rare blend of precision and passion. When he first ignited his twin lightsabers, one blade emerald, the other sapphire borrowed from his fallen Padawan, it seemed the culmination of destiny itself. In 22 BBY, during the harsh crucible of Geonosis, Kolar answered Mace Windu's call to lead the rescue of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. He fought amid swirling dust and clashing steel, his saber strikes a blur of disciplined ferocity. By war's tide, he had become a revered Jedi general, his name evoking both respect and reassurance within clone ranks. Yet every victory etched unseen scars upon his spirit, as war's necessities eroded the Council's ideals. Elevated to the Jedi High Council after Eeth Koth's departure, Aegon sat among peers whose wisdom he revered. He advised on critical matters, the Megadroid threat on Galathia, Chancellor Palpatine's request to seat Anakin Skywalker, and the hunt for General Grievous, each debate underscoring his unwavering loyalty. Still, a whisper of doubt flickered through his stoic resolve. Could political maneuvering preserve peace any better than blade in hand? Then came the fateful moment in Palpatine's private office. Windu's quartet, sabers drawn and hearts steeled, sought to arrest the Supreme Chancellor once and for all. Kolar's emerald glow met Sidious's malevolent glare as the chamber's air crackled with impending doom. In a heartbeat's betrayal, the clones, once his faithful shield, turned volley upon volley of blaster fire. Kolar lunged forward, parrying with desperate precision, but a bolt erupted through the haze. He collapsed, dual blades extinguished, the last vision of his form a fallen pillar of the order he had once vowed to protect. His death echoed across the galaxy as the first cracks of Order 66 shattered the Jedi's foundation. The Council's greatest duelist lay slain, his confidence in both Republic and clones undone in a single brutal moment. Historians would later cite Agen Kolar's fall as the tragic apex of the Order's blind trust in wartime pragmatism. Yet even in death, his legacy endured. Workshops on Coruscant recalled his innovative dual crystal sabers, emerald and sapphire entwined in one hilt, now studied as symbols of balance between new hope and old tradition. Jedi holocrons preserved his strategies in the Jedi Temple's archives, urging future generations to temper martial skill with unwavering vigilance against deception. Legends speak of Force-sensitive youths who feel a Zabrak's steady presence guiding their first saber drills, as though Kolar's spirit still stands guard over the Jedi's soul. Beneath Geonosis's red skies and in the Senate's polished chambers, stories of his gallantry and sudden fall became parables. That even the most skilled guardian can be undone by unseen betrayal, and that no mastery of blade or mind can replace the need for constant discernment. Agen Kolar's memory challenges every Jedi to question loyalties, to listen for hidden falter in the Force's currents, and to remember that loyalty without scrutiny is a blade turned inward. As dawn's light glimmers on Coruscant's spires, we leave the echo of dual blades behind and climb toward the heights of prophetic dread, where an Iktochi seer's visions were ignored, heralding a cost the Council would never forgive. Beneath Coruscant's soaring spires, in the Council's hallowed chamber, Master Ki-Adi-Mundi sat with quiet dignity, his Xerian head bowed in measured attention. His dual brain skull, an emblem of his species' gift for enhanced cognition, scanned hollow reports of rising separatist threats and the Republic's mounting casualties. And yet, when whispers reached the council of a humble slave woman and her son tortured under Tusken Raiders' sands, his response was caution cloaked in procedure. We lack concrete evidence. In that moment, the seeds of cynicism were sown, eroding the compassion that once bound him to the Jedi way. Ki-Adi-Mundi's ascent began on the world of Syria, where twin suns cooled beneath endless harvest fields. From early childhood, his mind wove two streams of thought into one flowing tapestry, granting him uncanny strategic insight. When invited to join the Jedi Order, he carried the hopes of his people, pledging to uphold balance with the serenity of his dual perception. On the battlefield, his precise tactics and calm guidance turned the tide in skirmishes across remote star systems. Yet each victory distanced him further from the humble origins that had once grounded his purpose. As the Clone Wars raged, the Council's halls echoed less with philosophical debate and more with tactical directives. When Chancellor Palpatine advised the deployment of clone battalions across contested sectors, Mundi offered measured assent, trusting in the clone army's oath to serve. He coordinated amphibious assaults on aquatic worlds and orbital strikes on desert fortresses, all executed with crystalline precision. His clones revered him, his calm voice a panacea against fear. But with every strategic gamble, his heart drifted from compassion toward calculation. Meanwhile, on the distant dunes of Tatooine, a message lay unheeded. Shmi Skywalker's cries, dispatched through understaffed Republic channels, described a mother's agony and her son's latent potential. Yet Council records buried the plea beneath classifications of local tribal skirmishes. Mundi, presiding over the vote that denied dispatching aid, argued the risk of Republic involvement outweighed uncertain intelligence. In that decision, the Jedi abandoned empathy to duty, and a mother's scream echoed unanswered across uncaring corridors. When Master Obi-Wan Kenobi later discovered Anakin's roots in that suffering, he found in Ki-Adi-Mundi's calm justification a mirror of the Order's flaws. Compassion, once the Jedi's greatest shield, had become an afterthought to political expediency. Mundi's measured voice in the Council, once a source of stability, now symbolized the Order's slow drift toward rigidity, a drift that would lure Anakin down darker paths. Yet even in his tone of reason, Ki-Adi-Mundi never lost his underlying conviction. When the Council deliberated the proposition to grant Anakin Skywalker a seat as Master, an unprecedented breach of tradition, Mundi spoke fervently of the prophecy and the need for unity. His clarion logic lent weight to that argument, tipping the balance toward acceptance even as it revealed the Council's readiness to bend its own rules. In that moment, his dual minds converged in paradox. Compassion for a chosen son, yet cold disregard for a nameless mother. The night of Order 66 found Mundi on Maigito, leading clone forces into crystalline trenches dug across frozen plains. As separation chips flickered awake in soldier minds, he felt the subtle shift, an undercurrent of betrayal in every salute. Blaster bolts sizzled through his shield walls, and in the chaos, his realization came too late. The Republic he served had turned on its guardians. Surrounded by former allies, he raised his saber, green streaks fracturing crystal frost. But the clone's programmed loyalty eclipsed his pleas as electricity surged through his body. His final thought reached beyond pain, that in serving the Republic without vigilance, he had served its downfall. In Coruscant's silent aftermath, his name drifted through empty chambers as a caution. the holocrons would preserve his accounts, both of strategic brilliance and of tragic oversight. Jedi acolytes would study his tactical memoranda alongside his denied pleas for compassion, learning that a guardian's role demands both the mind's clarity and the heart's empathy. Now, as dawn breaks over Coruscant's gilded domes, we leave Master Mundi's dichotomy behind and turn toward a warrior whose foresight was silenced too soon. Enter Shaak Ti and the cost of ignored prophecy. A tremor ripples through Coruscant's twilight as Master Shaak Ti steps onto the High Council dais, his Iktochi horns crackling faintly with the weight of visions unspoken. Behind him, the Senate suite's marble floors gleam under spirelight, yet all beauty pales before the shiver in the force that precedes an unwelcome truth. Ti, ever the silent sentinel, felt that shiver long before words were spoken, an echo of darkness gathering beyond known space, a storm none heeded. From the moment he first joined the council, Ti carried the twin burdens of prophecy and pilot's instinct. On Iktoch, his mind learned to split into two streams, intuition and analysis, guiding starfighter trainees through the moon's brutal jet streams. As a Jedi general, he translated that gift into tactics that saved entire fleets. Yet few among his peers recognized that his flashes of foresight, from the dusky fields of Lothal to the breached hulls of Umbara, were warnings they dismissed as bravado. Then came the final council meeting before the Clone War's end. Whispers of a hidden Sith uprising on Exegol drifted through star charts and holomap schematics. Ti closed his eyes in the chamber's hush, feeling a chill coil around distant star flares as if reality itself trembled. He spoke with measured calm, urging the council to mount scouts into the unknown regions, to uncover the shadowed machinations of a hidden master. But colleagues, wearied by war and skeptical of visions unanchored by proof, brushed his plea aside. "We have enough fronts," they said. "We cannot chase every shadow." In the weeks that followed, the unrest Ti foresaw grew into a gale. Secret transmissions carried whispers of fleets assembling where no Republic fleet dared pass. Ti's warnings went unheeded, relegated to the temple's archives alongside other dismissed predictions. Yet he did not relent. Under cover of routine patrols, he lazed through hyperlanes into less charted sectors, always seeking, always listening for that tremor in the Force. Back on Coruscant, the Senate fell under Palpatine's sway, and the Jedi slid deeper into politics, their senses dulled by protocol and partition. Ti watched from the Council's edge as Anakin rose and Yoda aged, and each time the Force tightened like a noose around the Order's resolve. He spoke in council sessions of unseen threats, of darkness brewing between stars, but his words rippled through hollow halls. Then came Order 66. Blaster fire shattered the council chamber's soaring arches, and the clones he had led so many times turned their weapons with silent obedience. Ti ignited his saber in one fluid motion, green blade arcing as he leapt toward the nearest clone line. The charge flickered in his hand like a heartbeat in jeopardy. He tried to call the clones by name, a final plea echoing through the Force, but the chips in their brains held too fast. A bolt struck him full in the chest, its energy searing through flight harness and armor plating alike. Ti's body spun, then crumpled, limbs folding beneath him as his lightsaber spun free. He landed on marble, the blade skittering away as the life drained from his eyes that once glimpsed hidden horrors and fell silent. Yet his death was not the silence many assumed. Those who retrieved his body from the chamber's rubble spoke of a final whisper carried on the wind. a low, urgent plea for those who remained to watch beyond the horizon. In holocron shards discovered later, students found Tien's last recording. Not a map or coordinates, but a single warning. When the world ends, it will be from within the shadows we chose to ignore. Coruscant's artifacts curators labeled the whisper a poetic flourish, but among scattered Jedi enclaves and emerging rebel cells, it became a mantra. Pilots wore simple horn-shaped pendants in his memory, a symbol of sight beyond sight. And in hidden training glades, acolytes practiced hyperspace drifting under starlit canopies, learning that the Force speaks not only through calm mind, but through vigilance, born of previous regrets. Shaak Ti's legacy lives as both caution and beacon. Caution that even the keenest foresight can be shattered by complacency, and beacon that the Force's subtle warnings merit more than polite nods in council rooms. His life reminds every guardian that true strength lies in listening to truths unseen, and that silence in the face of dread can cost the galaxy its future. As Shaak Ti's final vision fades into memory, we descend once more into the Order's inner halls, preparing to confront the pride and prowess of Agan Kolar, whose dual blades were no match for betrayal's silent blade. Under Coruscant's artificial twilight, the fountains of the Senate Plaza shimmer with neon reflections, yet their crystalline waters betray a darker truth. A lone tentacle drifts, a silent testament to a Nautolan's final stand. Jedi Master Kit Fisto, renowned for his buoyant spirit and infectious grin, met his end not in some grand duel of flashy acrobatics, but beneath the Emperor's calm smirk, a reminder that charm cannot shield one from betrayal. Kit Fisto's journey began in the depths of Glee Anselm's coral reefs, where his people's affinity for water and empathy with marine life nurtured his early attunement to the Force. He swam alongside kelp forests, learning patience as currents guided him and the rhythmic pulse of oceanic life mirrored the Force's ebb and flow. His path to the Jedi Temple was buoyed by tales of peace and flowing serenity, qualities he carried into every council chamber and battlefield. During the Clone Wars, Fisto's charisma proved as potent as his skill with a lightsaber. Clad in dark green blades that shimmered like moonlit ripples, he led maritime engagements on Mon Cala and underwater ambushes against droid armadas. His laughter echoed through Coruscant's corridors, an assurance that hope remained, even as war's shadow spread. Clones under his command trusted him implicitly, forging bonds that transcended the soldier's oath and spoke to the Jedi's enduring spirit. Yet it was Fisto's presence on Chancellor Palpatine's flagship during the war's final hours that sealed his fate. Summoned by emergency pleas, he arrived amid flickering holo displays and desperate council deliberations. The chamber's ambience crackled with urgency as Mace Windu and his fellow masters confronted the Chancellor, accusing him of treachery. Fisto ignited his sabers in solidarity, his twin green arcs a vow to shield the Republic's highest office. But Palpatine's power was deeper than mere politics. It was the black tide of the dark side itself. With a languid twist of his lips, the Emperor unleashed torrents of corrupted lightning. The chamber's force field buckled, and one by one, the masters fell. Fisto parried the first bolts with deft swings, water-like arcs of emerald energy dissipating the crackling currents. His form blurred as he leapt toward Palpatine, seeking to end the tyranny before it began. Then came the subtle reversal. The clones, once protectors, pivoted on instinct and order. Blaster fire erupted through smoke and shattered stone, Fisto's blade cut a path through approaching troopers, but his focus wavered at the sight of betrayal in their eyes. Lightning flared again, the Emperor's will manifesting in jagged veins of lethal power. Fisto raised one arm to shield a fallen brother, and in that unguarded moment, a bolt struck home. The Master's last vision was simple. The chamber bathed in harsh blue light, Palpatine's smirk unchanged. Fisto's laughter, once a clarion call of hope, flickered into silence as life drained through his wounds. His body collapsed onto the polished floor, blades extinguishing in a pool of reflection. In the days that followed, Senate records discreetly noted the loss of Jedi leadership. Public obituaries praised Republic soldiers lost to rogue lightning discharges. Yet beneath Coruscant's glowing veneer, whispers of a Nautolan sacrifice endured. Senators commissioned fountains in his honor, sculpted with trailing tentacles that seemed to dance beneath moonlight. Pilots painted his image on starfighters, a smiling face against the void, to remind allies that even in darkness, warmth can guide the way. Within the Jedi archives, his memory prompted debate over the Council's reliance on goodwill rather than caution. Masters who once dismissed the Emperor's threat as mere rhetoric now studied Fisto's demise as a case study in strategic humility. Codices recorded not only his battlefield exploits, but also his final misstep. The belief that a compassionate heart could transcend the cunning of a Sith Lord. Yet Kit Fisto's legacy transcends failure. His example galvanized hidden cells of resistance, inspiring operatives to combine charm with vigilance. In secret training glades, hopeful initiates sparred beneath holograms of ocean reefs, aspiring to meld empathy with mastery. And in moments of doubt, they whispered his name, remembering that laughter itself can be a weapon against despair. As the fountains reclaim peace and the city breathes beneath twilight, we depart from the Nautolan's watery echoes. Ahead lies one who dared mercy and met its limits. A Zabrak whose head once bowed in denial, waiting to teach the Jedi's next lesson in balance. A crimson flare pulses through Coruscant's twilight as Jedi Master Plo Koon's starfighter slams into the marble plaza, its canopy shattering into jeweled fragments that scatter like raindrops across the gleaming floor. Clad in his distinctive Kel-Dor mask, Koon emerges, breath ragged in the thin air, only to face the cold betrayal of those he once called brothers. Clone troopers, whose loyalty circuits have snapped beneath the weight of Order 66. Plo Koon's journey began under twin suns and swirling dust storms of Dorin, where young Kel-Dor paddled fishing skiffs through volatile seas, mastering patience as currents tugged at his oar. He joined the Jedi Order, seeking harmony of mind and spirit, his silent strength carrying him through trials of meditation and study of ancient treatises on balance. His compassion became legend. He bartered peace between warring clans on Saria, soothed temperaments of storm-tossed diplomats in the Senate, and rescued stranded refugees from volcanic worlds. In battle, his mastery of Form 2 displayed both elegance and ferocity, each flourish of his blade a promise that the Order stood for guardianship, not conquest. When the Clone Wars erupted, Koon took to the skies above Christophsis, leading squadrons of specially trained Jedi starfighters. His clones swore to follow him beyond any horizon, trusting his calm voice over the furious roar of battle. Time and again, their patrols broke separatist blockades. His interventions saved civilian convoys and shielded vulnerable outposts. Under his command, the Kel-Dor's mask became a symbol of hope, a visage forged not in cruelty, but in silent empathy. Yet as Palpatine's decree echoed through the galaxy, The clones he commanded turned their guns with mechanical precision. In the heart of the Jedi Temple's twilight courtyard, Koon sensed the shift too late. A volley of blaster fire rippled outward, sparks dancing across his mask's lenses. He raised his saber to defend fellow masters, but the clones pressed in, a tide of betrayal more devastating than any enemy's flank. The mask cracked beneath a concentrated burst, the fractured crystal revealing his widening eyes of shock and sorrow. He fought on, each strike fueled by the Force's last embers within him, but he was outnumbered. The clones' programmed obedience outweighed the bonds they once shared. His final moments were a blur of motion, a fallen comrade's echoing cry, the hiss of cooling plasma, and then the sudden hush as his blade dimmed, clattering to the ground beside his broken starfighter. Across Coruscant, news of his fall rippled through rebel cells and hidden enclaves. Pilots who once flew under his command etched his mask's shattered silhouette on their hulls, a reminder that even the Jedi's fiercest guardians could be undone by misplaced trust. In temple archives, his holocron was sealed with a warning that mercy without vigilance can become a path to ruin, and that compassion must be tempered by discernment. Yet, from the ruins of betrayal, Koon's legacy endured. Clans on Dorin still gather beneath twin moons to tell tales of a silent hero whose kindness knew no borders, whose sacrifice became a clarion call for resilience. Jedi acolytes study his flight logs, learning that a leader's greatest weapon is the bond of trust, and that bond, once broken, demands vigilance to preserve the Order's true purpose. We leave behind Master Plo Koon's shattered mask and step into the next part, where the Death Star's green wrath will test the galaxy's resolve and the rebellion's courage in equal measure. A hollow silence reigns in the dim corridors of Kamino's cloning facilities, where endless rows of amber tanks cradle uniform forms awaiting life. Within this engineered abyss stands Master Shaak Ti, her Togruta Leku wrapped in ceremonial cloth, eyes closed in meditation as waves of steam hiss through recessed vents. Behind her, silent figures, clones molded for war, wait beneath the pale glow of induction chambers, each identical face a mirror of obedience. Yet beneath the surface calm, a tremor of unease grips the Jedi Order's conscience. For the bargain struck with the Republic's militarization would soon fracture trust beyond repair. Shaak Ti's path to the High Council began on her homeworld of Shili, where sunlight danced through coral forests, and her people's harmony with nature defined her earliest lessons in the Force. Trained at the temple on Coruscant, she mastered the art of balance, her grace in Form 5 a testament to her melding of martial prowess and serene intention. When the Clone Wars erupted, Ti found herself entrusted with overseeing aspects of the army's expansion. Sent to Kamino, she witnessed the Republic's desperate hope etched into every clone's DNA, and her heart ached with both compassion and concern. She believed the Jedi could guide the clones, instilling ethics alongside tactics, teaching mercy alongside marksmanship. Under her watch, training regimens included meditation sessions and teachings on civilian protection. Clone commanders spoke of her kindness, saying even the toughest troopers paused at her voice. In council meetings, she advocated for transparency, urging the Senate to employ the clones only as guardians, not conquerors. And yet, her proposals met resistance. Urgency trumped caution, and the Republic's fearful leaders silenced her warnings about unchecked weaponization. Amidst this, Palpatine's shadow lengthened. His hand guided procurement bids, weaving political threads that bound the Jedi to the clone project. Ti felt the Force murmur its disapproval, but struggled to discern whether the tremor was fear for the Republic or premonition of betrayal. She resolved to remain vigilant, trusting that her stewarding role would shield both clone and Jedi from moral compromise. That resolve lasted until Order 66. On Felucia's jungle moon, Shaak Ti led clones through bioluminescent undergrowth, seeking separatist commanders among spore-laden vines. The clones, her students, her allies, flattened foliage at her command, their trust in her steady hand absolute. Then, in a heartbeat, their blasters swung from battle to betrayal. Bolts of emerald light snapped through vines as she raised her saber, deflecting hate-laced fire. Her meditative calm shattered as wave after wave of programmed loyalty overtook her pleas. She danced through columns of fire, a green flame against the encroaching darkness, yet each clone advanced with unerring precision. A moment's hesitation cost her. As she leapt to protect a wounded trooper, a shot pierced her side, pulling her mask from her face and revealing eyes wide with shock. She fell to one knee, breath rasping as vines of pain constricted her form. With her final breath, she lowered her saber and extended her hand in forgiveness, a gesture that no clone could comprehend. In the bitter twilight, her body ceased to move, and the jungle's alien flowers bloomed around her still form, petals scattering like tears. News of her demise struck the surviving Jedi as a betrayal of the deepest kind. The clones she had nurtured as defenders had become instruments of genocide. In the Council's empty chambers, her holocron sat dark, a silent reproach to those who had dismissed her concerns. Historians later noted that Shaak Ti's pleas against blind militarization foreshadowed the Order's downfall, that in embracing the clone army without sufficient safeguards, the Jedi had sown the seeds of their own destruction. Yet her legacy also kindled hope. On Sheely, a shrine grew beneath the coral groves, where Togruta pilgrims lit lanterns in her name, whispering stories of her compassion for both clone and civilian alike. In hidden cells across the galaxy, rebels invoked her teachings on balance, integrating meditation into combat drills as a tribute to her memory. And in the broken halls of the Jedi Temple, her holocron was finally reactivated. Its lessons on ethical warfare enshrined in newly erected statutes meant to prevent such calamity from ever recurring. A lone shaft of emerald light shivers in the damp gloom of a Coruscant detention cell, where the bars echo with distant echoes of conflict. Inside, Jedi Master Luminara Unduli sits, her posture rigid, the soft hum of her deactivated lightsaber still resonating against the stone floor. Once celebrated for her unyielding discipline and serene resolve, she now faces the ruin of a promise she never saw unraveling: her protege's descent into fanaticism. Luminara's path to the Council began on the waterworld of Miriel, where her youth was shaped by rippling lagoon and floating gardens. There, in the silver mists of dawn, she learned the art of stillness, to let the Force flow like gentle currents, and to see beyond surface ripples. As she matured, her mastery of Ataru became renowned, each leap and strike executed with balletic precision, yet tempered by an unmistakable calm. When called to train the next generation, she carried that balance into her teaching, guiding apprentices with a steady hand and an open heart. Among her students, Barriss Offee shone brightest, a fervent learner whose hunger for knowledge outpaced her peers. Under Luminara's watchful eye, Barriss mastered defensive forms and ancient meditations, her mind weaving through holocrons with eager dexterity. Yet in Luminara's gentle encouragement lay a hidden caution. Mastery without restraint breeds arrogance, and wisdom without humility births shadows. She pressed that lesson in every lesson, yet underestimated how grief could twist intent into obsession. The turning point came in the Republic's darkest hours. When clones marched under Order 66 and the Jedi Order fractured, Luminara led a daring rescue on Dak's frozen fields, her precise blade carving paths through ceaseless ranks. But behind each victorious strike, a hollow ache gnawed at her spirit, a fear that victory meant too much loss. Upon returning to Coruscant, she discovered Barriss among those questioning the Jedi's actions, the orphaned turned zealot, convinced that the Order's failures demanded a purging flame. Confronting her apprentice in the shadowed halls, Luminara spoke with the same quiet authority that had guided Barriss since childhood. Yet each word of reason met a wall of resentment. Barriss accused the Council of hypocrisy, her yellow eyes blazing with self-righteous fury as she extolled justice through sacrifice. Luminara felt the Force recoil at that conviction, a sickness born of righteous anger, and she struggled to reach the student she once knew. Before reconciliation could bloom, Barriss struck. In a clandestine act of desperation, she poisoned the temple's water supply, seeking to awaken the Jedi to the Order's corruption through shared suffering. Luminara arrived too late. In the sickened hush of the infirmary, she cradled a dying Plo Koon in one arm, her other hand pressed against the trembling form of a young acolyte. That night, as the hospital wings filled with innocent victims, Luminara's faith fractured. After the purge's end, Barriss confessed to her betrayal, her confession both a relief and a wound. Luminara, guided by the Jedi Code, handed her over to Republic authorities, her heart heavy with sorrow and unanswered questions. The student she had nurtured became a prisoner, while Luminara's own trials began. Investigation, public scrutiny, and the bitter taste of responsibility. In the following council session, Luminara sat with bowed head, her uniform immaculate, yet her eyes distant. Grandmaster Yoda spoke of compassion and the burden of mercy, reminding the council that adversity tests resolve. Though the council affirmed Luminara's intent, they could not erase the tragedy. Legend holds that she requested a private retreat to Mirial's reflective pools, seeking to restore balance within her own fractured soul. Over time, Luminara's wisdom deepened. She resumed her duties with a new philosophy, that a mentor's role extends beyond instruction into vigilance over each heart entrusted to their care. Her lectures on emotional integrity became cornerstones of Jedi training, and her silence in council carried more weight than any blade, an acknowledgement that even the brightest spirits can be dimmed by unchecked zeal. Now, as the cell's barred shadows lengthen into evening, Luminara stands and retrieves her saber. Its hum, once abandoned, flares anew, soft yet steady, as she steps into Coruscant's humming corridors. Ahead awaits a test of compassion reborn, the defense of hope against a galaxy still healing from betrayal. A single hand, gloved in heat-charred leather, reaches out through the ashen haze of Mustafar, its fingers trembling as black embers drift like flurries around a fallen figure. In that desperate moment, Obi-Wan Kenobi's heart burns brighter than any binary sunset, yet his touch cannot draw Anakin Skywalker back from the abyss. This image, hope clasped in grief, embodies the chasm between a master's compassion and an order's rigid doctrine. Obi-Wan's journey began on Stugion's rolling plains, where childhood curiosity first tuned him to the Force's murmur. Discovered by Qui-Gon Jinn, he learned that strength of heart must temper strength of blade. Under the Jedi Code, he excelled in Form 3, mastering defensive postures that reflected an opponent's fury back upon themselves. Yet he also possessed Qui-Gon's innate empathy, forging bonds that transcended rank and doctrine. When Anakin emerged, the chosen one born without father, Obi-Wan embraced his destiny with unwavering loyalty. The Council, wary of prophecy, hesitated, but Qui-Gon entrusted his final charge to the young Padawan. In that vow, Obi-Wan found purpose: to guide Anakin's brilliance and guard his innocence. He trained with gentle firmness, channeling Anakin's tempestuous energy into disciplined technique, and together they brought peace to Naboo's sweltering fields and Naboo's ornate palaces alike. As the Clone Wars engulfed the galaxy, Obi-Wan's calm resolve became a beacon amid chaos. He negotiated truces and led daring rescue missions from Christophsis to Utapau, his decisions marked by a balance of empathy and strategy. In council sessions, he advocated patience with Palpatine's growing power, even as others urged immediate crackdown, believing that mercy could avert greater bloodshed. Yet every triumph carved deeper scars in Anakin's soul. Secret fears of loss, of failure, festered beneath his veneer of charm. Obi-Wan sensed these shadows and counseled open confession and shared burden, but the Council discouraged personal counsel, fearing attachment. When Anakin revealed premonitions of Padme's suffering, Obi-Wan petitioned the Council for leave to protect her, only to be overruled in deference to order over heart. That moment festered, sowing seeds of betrayal. On Mustafar, when Anakin's corruption crystallized into Darth Vader, Obi-Wan confronted his fallen apprentice atop rivers of molten rock. Sparks leapt as sabers collided, blue meeting crimson in furiously mirrored arcs. Each parry echoed with memories of shared laughter and hard-won victories. But beneath his strikes lay agony. He struck not to kill his brother, but to save what remained of the light within him. When Anakin fell, Obi-Wan's hand extended in final plea. Words faltered in smoke and sorrow. "Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine has deceived you." His voice cracked, yet his conviction remained. But where a Jedi's blade fails, a Master's heart can only witness the abyss. Anakin's scream drowned Obi-Wan's hope as the ex-Padawan slid into darkness, leaving only ash-laden silence. Obi-Wan's exile on Tatooine became his penance and his vigil. He watched over Luke Skywalker from the shadows, nurturing the spark of redemption kindled by shared blood. His teachings shifted from formal lessons to quiet presence, guiding not with doctrine, but with the unspoken promise that the Force binds all living hearts. In each sand-whipped dawn, he remembered Anakin's laughter, and in every dusk, he mourned the Council's failure to balance law with love. Years later, on Death Star's bristling hull, he faced Vader again. A duel less of skill and more of burden carried. Obi-Wan laid down his life with calm resolve, not as defeat, but as sacrifice, freeing the path for Luke to confront the darkness and restore balance. In that final breath, his body vanished, leaving only the echo of enduring compassion. Obi-Wan Kenobi's legacy stands as a testament to the peril of rigid dogma unchecked by empathy. His failures and sacrifices remind every guardian that heart and principle must march in step, lest one betray the other. In fading legend and whispered holocron, his story endures. A master who loved too much for an order that loved not enough. A violet gleam cuts through Coruscant's night as Master Windu steps into the Chancellor's chambers, his posture rigid beneath the weight of duty. His Varpad stance crackles with controlled ferocity, an embodiment of martial mastery that channels inner darkness without succumbing to it. Yet in that very chamber, where trust once bound the Council to its guardians, Windu's doubt seeds his undoing. A purple blade, once ignited to uphold peace, will soon be snuffed out by lightning born of betrayal. Mace Windu's path began on Harun Kal, where he honed the ancient form of Varpad, a technique that danced on the edge between light and shadow, drawing strength from both. While other masters shunned such perilous balance, Windu saw Varpad as a mirror, reflecting an opponent's fury back upon them. In every duel, his blade moved like living energy, arcs of purple that whispered of relentless resolve and unwavering purpose. When Palpatine's machinations surfaced, Windu led the charge to end the Sith threat. He confronted General Grievous on Utapau, his Varpad lashing through droid armies as if they were paper dolls. He dueled Count Dooku under Coruscant's gleaming spires, each blow resonating like thunder across the city world. Yet for all his victories, Windu harbored a seed of mistrust, an undercurrent that grew each time he sensed Chancellor Palpatine's unnatural grasp on the Senate. As the Clone Wars bled into shadow, the Council grew uneasy. When Windu discovered Palpatine's true identity as Darth Sidious, his conviction crystallized into a plan. A small cadre of Jedi would storm the Chancellor's office and end the war at its root. His Varpad-fueled confidence carried him through the corridors, his purple blade igniting with lethal promise. Behind him, Yoda, Kit Fisto, and Agan Kolar flanked him, guards of light stepping into darkness. Sidious's chamber hummed with deceptive calm. At Windu's advance, the Sith Lord unleashed torrents of Force lightning. Windu's Varpad reacted instinctively. His blade became both shield and conduit, absorbing the twisted bolts and channeling them outward in a violet storm that shattered furniture and scorched marble. His eyes, narrowed with focus, sought the moment to strike. And then, Anakin Skywalker entered, torn between loyalty and love. The boy Windu had hoped to trust blocked the final blow, his hand outstretched in desperate plea. In that heartbeat's hesitation, Sidious struck deeper, redirecting lightning into Windu's blade and then into Windu himself. The purple light sputtered and dulled, his mastery unable to absorb the twist of betrayal. His body collapsed to the ground, his blade extinguished, and his last sight was of Anakin's agonized face turned away as Palpatine's laughter filled the room. Windu's fall echoed across the galaxy, a stark paradox. The greatest warrior undone not by raw power, but by fractured trust. His Varpad mastery, once a testament to balancing darkness and light, became a symbol of the Council's over-reliance on martial skill without nurturing empathy. A warrior of unparalleled strength, he found that might could not shield him from the corrosive touch of doubt, doubt sown in others and nurtured in himself. In the aftermath, the Council's halls grew quieter. Windu's holocron was sealed, its teachings on Varpad cautioned against, but never forgotten. Masters debated whether to ban the form or reframe it as a lesson in self-awareness. In hidden enclaves, students practiced Varpad under muted torchlight, learning that every surge of power demands an equal measure of compassion. Across the galaxy, whispers of a purple blade lost to betrayal inspired both fear and reverence. Rebels invoked Windu's name when defying tyranny. Pilots painted his symbol on starfighters as an emblem of sacrifice. On Coruscant's memorial spire, a single plaque reads, "Mace Windu, guardian of balance, fallen by distrust." Leaving the memory of a master's final duel, we turn our gaze inward, to the Jedi's greatest paradox of all, a lifetime of wisdom brought low by unwavering tradition. Yoda awaits, and with him, the lesson that even the wisest can be blinded by their own certainty. Mist curls through the oasis gardens of Naboo, silvered by moonlight that shimmers off gentle streams. There, beneath ancient arches entwined with blooming vines, Master Qui-Gon Jinn stands apart from his peers, a solitary figure whose calm smile hints at secrets the Council cannot grasp. His robes rustle in the soft breeze as he follows the Force's whispered beckoning, a path that leads him toward destiny's turning point and the Council's lost chance at renewal. Qui-Gon's path began far from Coruscant's marble halls, on the pastoral plains of Coruscant's sister world. As a youth, he learned to trust the Force's living pulse in every rustling leaf and drifting petal. His unorthodox methods, favoring intuition over dogma, raised eyebrows among strict masters. Yet he found his true calling as a seeker of balance. Where others imposed the code, Qui-Gon listened to the Force first, then shaped his teaching around its counsel. When the Council sent him to negotiate trade disputes on the planet of Ord Mantell, he sensed more than shifting credits. He felt suffering hidden in the twilight streets. He walked among refugees and merchants alike, offering aid before mediation. His reputation spread among clones and senators who came to see him as a guardian of the powerless rather than a foot soldier of policy. Yet his greatest trial awaited on Tatooine, in the vast O'Shea Desert where twin suns beat down on slave camps and silent sands. There, Qui-Gon discovered a boy who carried the Force's fire like a hidden ember. Anakin Skywalker possessed raw power unmatched in living memory, yet he wore his doubt like a second skin. Qui-Gon pleaded with the Council to recognize the boy's destiny, arguing that rigid tradition could blind the Order to the Force's living will. "He is the chosen one," he declared, his voice resonant with conviction. His fellow masters, bound by protocol and prophecy, refused to bend. His pleas echoed unanswered through the chamber's vaulted arches. Despite the Council's rebuff, Qui-Gon defied their verdict. He negotiated Anakin's freedom, risking reprimand to bring the boy to Coruscant's temple. In every step of their journey, he nurtured Anakin's spirit, tempering fear with compassion and teaching control through compassion. Under Qui-Gon's tutelage, the boy learned that the Force was not a tool of manipulation, but a living bond that united all beings. Their bond became legend among those who believed that hope could outshine fear. Qui-Gon's final act unfolded aboard the Trade Federation battleship, where Chancellor Palpatine's machinations began to align with shadows. As the Queen's ship escaped blockade, he faced the droid army alongside his apprentice and fellow masters. In the vast corridors, his blade danced through enemy ranks with effortless grace. Yet when Darth Maul's double-bladed saber ignited in the arena, Qui-Gon stepped forward with unflinching gaze. He moved as though borne on invisible currents, each strike a lesson in openness and restraint. The duel's crescendo came with a flick of crimson light as Maul shattered Qui-Gon's defenses. The Master faltered, mortally wounded, yet his final smile glowed with acceptance rather than fear. With his dying breath, he entrusted Anakin's future to Obi-Wan, insisting that his Padawan complete the task he could not finish. "Remember the living Force," he whispered across the Force's bridge, "and let it guide our Order anew." Qui-Gon's death struck the Council like a thunderclap. His body lay in the temple's quiet sanctum, the canopy above, alight with starlight filtered through stained glass. Masters gathered in silent reflection, confronting the consequences of tradition untempered by vision. In that hush, the seeds of change took root. Qui-Gon's insistence on personal truth would echo through generations, shaping Jedi who valued the living force over rigid doctrine. Across the galaxy, bards sang of a Jedi who walked beside starlit rivers and listened to desert winds. In hidden backwaters, initiates studied his holocron, not as a treatise on technique, but as an invitation to feel the Force's living pulse. And on Tatooine's dunes, Anakin Skywalker built his first pod racer under Qui-Gon's gentle guidance, carrying forward a legacy born of maverick faith. As dawn breaks over Naboo's tranquil lakes, we leave behind the memory of a rogue master's final lesson. Ahead awaits the twilight of traditions, where centuries of wisdom will clash with the inevitability of change. From Qui-Gon's fading smile into the Force, our path turns to Grandmaster Yoda, the ancient architect of the Order's heights and the heart of its ultimate trial. As winds brush over the ancient trees of Dagobah, as a small, gnarled hand closes around a green lightsaber's haft and lowers it with unspoken sorrow. Centuries of devotion and victories weigh upon Master Yoda's shoulders. Yet in this final moment, even his boundless wisdom cannot forestall the Order's undoing. The shimmering blade dims, its glow fading like a distant star at dawn, a testament to the cost of ancient traditions faced with a galaxy in flux. Yoda's journey began millennia ago on a distant planet, where his species' innate connection to the Force blossomed into unparalleled mastery. Trained in the secrets of balance and harmony, he rose through the ranks of the Jedi Order, his diminutive form belying a power that could reshape worlds. He counseled kings and emperors, deciphered prophecies, and forged the Council's earliest doctrines, believing that the path of peace lay in temperance and vigilance. Through centuries of conflict, from the Thousand Years' War to the Mandalorian Wars, Yoda's voice remained a beacon of temperate reason. He advocated patience when others sought swift victory, urging restraint, even as war's flames spread. His teachings on non-attachment guided generations of Jedi, shaping their commitment to a higher purpose. Yet with each passing age, new challenges arose, emerging threats that blurred the line between light and shadow, and political currents that tested the Order's resolve. When the Clone Wars erupted, Yoda found himself at the helm of a galaxy-spanning conflict. He dispatched Jedi across battlefields and negotiated fragile truces amidst carnage. His small frame strode across war-torn plains, lightsaber flashing like a beacon of hope, repelling droid armies and guiding clone legions. In council sessions, he sensed the ripples of fear that Palpatine wove into the Senate's tapestry. Yet his faith in the Republic's ideals tempered his doubts. As the war dragged on, the Order's once clear mandate blurred beneath the weight of duty. Jedi became generals rather than guardians, their identities consumed by strategy. Yoda felt the subtle shift in the Force, an undercurrent of despair, and warned against the path of militarization. His cautions echoed through marble chambers and battle-scarred halls, yet few heeded the ancient Master's counsel. In the Council's heart, his centuries of insight became overshadowed by the urgencies of war. When darkness finally revealed itself in the form of Order 66, Yoda's mastery of the Force granted him only a fleeting edge. He deflected blaster bolts in the Senate's ruined corridors, his blade a green arc of defiance, yet betrayal ran deeper than steel or energy. His attempt to rally surviving Jedi founders on Coruscant ended in chaos as the clones he once trusted turned against him. With grim resolve, he escaped the planet's fall, retreating into self-imposed exile on a mist-shrouded swamp. Dagobah became his sanctuary, a living testament to nature's enduring balance. There, Yoda dug a simple hut amidst twisting roots, his spirit tethered to the land's raw vitality. He studied the Force's living currents beneath hanging vines, and practiced humility beneath dripping canopies. Yet even in solitude, his heart bore the weight of loss. The order he led reduced to whispers and fading legends. Decades later, when hope rekindled in a young Luke Skywalker, Yoda emerged from shadow with measured purpose. He trained the fledgling Jedi in the simple truths he once taught kings, that power alone cannot conquer fear, and that wisdom blossoms from compassion. With each lesson in humility, lifting a starship from swampy depths or leaning into the Force's embrace, he imparted more than technique. He shared the essence of a legacy tempered by failure. In his final moments, Yoda sensed the murmur of destiny beyond the veil of death. He walked to a mossy clearing, his cane clicking over gnarled roots. Beneath swaying branches, he ignited his lightsaber one last time, letting its glow mingle with starlight filtering through the canopy. His eyes closed as he spoke truths he had carried since time's dawn. Pass on what you have learned. With a serene exhale, he extinguished the blade, becoming one with the living force he had devoted his life to preserving. Yoda's passing resonated across the galaxy. Jedi and rebels alike felt the ripples of his departure, a gentle reminder that even the greatest guardians must yield to change. His lessons endured in holocrons and whispered lore, that true mastery lies not in power, but in the courage to let go, that tradition must evolve or wither, and that every ending plants the seed of a new beginning. From the final breath of ancient wisdom, we turn to the last hope of the Order, Luke Skywalker, whose journey from Padawan to Master will both honor and challenge Yoda's legacy. The galaxy never asked for a saint. It got Luke Skywalker instead, a farm boy turned legend who carried the weight of the Jedi's legacy on shoulders still bruised by his father's armor. His story is one of soaring hope and crushing irony. The man who reignited the Jedi flame also fanned the embers of its oldest flaws. Luke's journey, from wide-eyed hero to jaded hermit to spectral symbol, is a masterclass in how even the best intentions can spiral into history's echo chamber. Luke Skywalker didn't want to rebuild the Jedi Council. He had to. After burning his father's corpse on Endor, he spent years sifting through ruins, literally and metaphorically. Jedi texts on Ossus, Sith holocrons on Mustafar, even a weekend seminar with a Force-sensitive tree on Dagobah. Thanks, Yoda. His new order was supposed to be different. No stuffy dogma, no emotional constipation, no council members debating politics while the galaxy burned. Just raw, unfiltered connection to the Force. But old habits die hard. By the time Ben Solo toddled into his academy, Luke had unknowingly recreated the Jedi Council's greatest blunder: distance. He lectured about balance while meditating on cliffs, preached compassion while side-eyeing Ben's nightmares. The boy's darkness didn't scare him. His own did. Luke's academy wasn't a temple. It was a therapy camp with lightsabers. Students gathered around campfires, sharing stories of Imperial oppression and rebel hope. They built bonds the prequel-era Jedi would have labeled attachment. But Luke, for all his rebellion, couldn't escape the Council's shadow. His fatal flaw, hubris in reverse. Where the old Council clung to tradition, Luke rejected it so fiercely he missed the warning signs. He ignored Leia's concerns about Snoke's whispers. He dismissed Ben's visions as teenage phase. When he finally peered into his nephew's mind, he didn't see Kylo Ren. He saw Vader. And in that moment, Luke became Mace Windu, a warrior so convinced of his moral clarity that he'd rather strike first than ask questions. The temple burned. Students fled or fell. And Luke, like Yoda before him, chose exile, not out of shame, but certainty. The galaxy was better off without Jedi, without him. Luke's greatest failure wasn't Ben's fall. It was his refusal to see himself in the Council's ashes. The prequel Jedi fell because they became soldiers. Luke fell because he became a spectator. While the First Order rose, he sipped green milk and yelled at Rey for wanting to fight. "Pass on what you have learned," Yoda urged. But Luke, ever the contrarian, heard, "Pass the torch," to someone else. Yet even in exile, he couldn't escape the Jedi's cyclical curse. Rey's arrival forced him to confront the truth. The Order's sins weren't in its structure, but its stubbornness. The Council had ignored Anakin's pain. Luke ignored Ben's. The Council had feared the dark side. Luke feared his own shadow. The parallels were as subtle as a rancor in a tea shop. His redemption, a Force projection sacrifice on Crate, was peak Jedi irony. Luke saved the Resistance by doing what the old Council never could: letting go. No grand speeches, no clashing blades. Just a wink, a shrug, and a lesson he'd spent decades unlearning. Sometimes, the best way to lead is to vanish. Luke's final act didn't rebuild the Council, it redefined it. Rey took his texts, his compass, and his bad habit of rushing into fights, but she also inherited his ghosts, the weight of legacy, the lure of shortcuts, the fear of becoming her teachers. That lone X-Wing, still rusting on Ahch-To, a monument to the Jedi's eternal paradox. To inspire, you must first falter. To teach, you must first listen. And to lead, you must sometimes leave.
The Council's hubris died with Luke, but its hope? That's still out there, dodging TIE fighters in a stolen Star Destroyer.
From Coleman Trebor's ill-fated stand to Luke Skywalker's hard-earned redemption, the Jedi Council's legacy is a mosaic of brilliance and humility. They remind us that wisdom isn't immunity to error, it's learning from it. So, whether you're facing a Sith Lord or a bad Wi-Fi connection, take a page from their holocron. Trust the Force, question authority, yes, even your own. And never underestimate the short guy with a glow stick. May the Force be with you, and your critical thinking skills.